right, let's just jump right in. We are going to break down the habits that keep so many of us in debt, and we're using these incredible illustrations from Sifuyek as our guide. This is a topic that hits close to home for almost everyone, but seeing it laid out so clearly like this, it can be a total game changer. So take a look at this. What do you think really forges these chains of debt? We tend to think of it as this giant, scary monster that shows up after some huge financial disaster. But what if that anchor holding you down isn't one big thing at all? What if it's actually made of something much, much smaller? And that's exactly the big secret here. It's almost never one single catastrophic event. More often than not, it's the small, seemingly harmless habits, the things we do every single day without even thinking about it. Those are the tiny little links that over time create a chain that can feel impossible to break. I mean, look at this comparison. It's perfect. On the left, you've got a huge, dramatic mistake, borrowing more to cover your losses. Very obvious. But on the right, it's just a tiny little leak, the kind you'd barely notice, labeled, "It's just small change." And here's the kicker. Both of them sink the ship. The real danger, so often, is the tiny leak we ignore because we tell ourselves it doesn't matter. So this brings us perfectly to part one, the mindset traps we set. Because before a single penny is spent, before any debt is taken on, the whole game really begins right up here, in our heads. Let's kick it off with habit number 5, always blaming the environment. It is so easy to do this, right? Pointing the finger at the economy, at a bad boss, at inflation. But the most telling part of this illustration is the one place the person isn't looking, the mirror. As long as we're blaming everything out there, we can never take control of what's in here. And then there's this old classic, procrastination. Putting off making a budget, ignoring that bill that came in the mail, delaying an investment. We've all done it. But this image just nails it. Time is literally slipping away. Every single delay has a real cost, and time is the one thing you can never, ever get back. Now this one is subtle, but it is so powerful. We set our own ceiling. It's like we build a little box around our own potential and we don't even realize we're doing it. We tell ourselves things like, "Oh, I could never earn that much," or the classic, "I'm just not good with money." And, well, here's the result. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This quote just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? Telling yourself you can't earn more is a promise you keep to yourself. That's not just a thought, it's a mental barrier that has very real, very tangible financial consequences. Which, of course, leads us right here. If you refuse to change the mindset, if you refuse to change the habits, you're just going to stay trapped in that same box. You can't possibly expect different results if you're not willing to do things differently. It's a pretty simple equation, really. Same habits, same results. Okay, let's shift gears and move to part 2. Now we're going to talk about spotting those tangible, everyday money leaks, the little things that drain our finances, often completely under the radar. And oh man, they are everywhere. You know what I'm talking about. Those auto renewals for apps you forgot you even had. The little $5 top-ups in games that feel like nothing at the time. Buying every single new trend you see on social media. Or hoarding a bunch of stuff you swear you're going to use one day. Every single one is a small leak in your financial boat. Let's dive deep on a really common one. Emotional shopping. You had a bad day at work, you're feeling stressed, maybe just bored, and that add to cart button feels like the perfect solution. But that little dopamine hit you get is so temporary, and it never actually fixes the feeling. It just adds a bill on top of it. And what about social pressure? Oh boy. On the left, you've got the person who always has to grab the check. "I got this one," even when their bank account is screaming no. On the right, you've got going to social events you don't even enjoy just to keep up appearances. In both situations, you're literally paying money to manage what other people think of you. So when you add up all these little leaks, all these drips and drains, it leads you to this one fundamental truth. When your spending is consistently higher than your income, you create a gap. And like it says right here, that gap has a name. It's called debt. Plain and simple. It's just math. All right, on to part 3, the big picture blunders. Now we're zooming out from the day-to-day leaks to the larger strategic mistakes that can keep us from ever really getting ahead. Here you can see 2 sides of the exact same coin. On the left, you have someone with no financial plan at all. Just money comes in, money goes out, with no direction. On the right, you have someone with these huge, amazing dreams, but absolutely zero action. A plan without action is just a wish. And a dream without a plan? Well, that's just a fantasy. This is a huge one. Having no emergency fund. Without that safety net, any little surprise, a car repair, an unexpected medical bill, it's not just an inconvenience anymore. It's a full-blown crisis. You're immediately forced to borrow money, usually at a high interest rate, and that turns a small problem into a really big long-term debt. Now, let's talk about a cycle a lot of people fall into. You ignore those little health problems, you burn yourself out at work, but you have to remember this critical truth. Your body is your #1 earning machine. Neglecting your health is honestly one of the worst financial decisions you can possibly make. And what's so smart about this slide is how it frames having a single source of income. It's not just a job, it's a vulnerability. One job and one salary means you are one crisis, one layoff, one illness away from your income dropping to absolute zero. And for anyone out there with credit card debt, this is absolutely essential. Paying only the minimum amount each month feels like you're managing it, but as this image shows, it's just letting that interest snowball out of control. That tiny payment is exactly how the system is designed to keep you in debt for years so they can maximize their profit from you. So, after looking at all these traps and pitfalls, let's get to the most important part of this whole thing. Let's talk about the conclusion. How do we actually break these chains? The choice is laid out perfectly right here. On the left, you can stay trapped inside that box of your same old habits, or you can look to the right, and you can make the decision to take action and start chasing your real potential. It really is a conscious choice to step out of that box. And really, the biggest takeaway from this whole explainer is this. Awareness is the first step. Just by being here and recognizing one or two of your own patterns in these images, you've already started. Honestly, recognizing the habit is half the battle won. So I'll just leave you with this one question. Think back on everything we've talked about. Don't try to fix it all at once. That's a recipe for failure. Just pick one. Which habit will you decide to tackle first?